Further afield, the United States has moved a step closer to banning TikTok after the House of Representatives passed a bill this week. The draft law calls for the Chinese app to divest from parent company and developer ByteDance or be booted out of U.S. app stores. The bill, known as Protecting Americans from Foreign Adversary Controlled Applications Act, was passed with an overwhelming majority of 352 votes against 65.
TikTok is facing a ban in the United States, a fate that has already befallen many American social media giants that tried to make it in China. On Wednesday, the U.S. House of Representatives passed a bill which could ban TikTok if its Chinese parent company, ByteDance, doesn't sell the app to an entity that satisfies Washington. Some analysts, including an information science professor at the University of Colorado, herself an avid TikTok user, question whether the focus on TikTok is obscuring the larger question of how to regulate an industry in which concerns about data privacy and potential manipulation have been rife for years.
I think a lot of the issues that are being brought up, things that need to be addressed, are problems with most big social media companies, including American ones. Concerns around data privacy and algorithmic manipulation, for example, are not unique to TikTok. And it certainly makes sense that there are specific concerns and risk because of the app's relationship with China. However, I have not seen articulation of the very specific security concerns that cannot be addressed with legislation that would apply to all social media platforms.
Meanwhile, lawmakers, TikTok creators, and supporters have argued against the potential ban.
Any ban on TikTok is not just banning the freedom of expression. You are literally causing huge harm to our national economy. We have small business owners that are here and small business owners from across the country that use TikTok to move our economy forward.
Not a single thing that we heard in today's classified briefing was unique to TikTok. It was things that happen on every single social media platform. And frankly, the threats that they were talking to us about are things that will continue happening on every single social media platform, even if this legislation passes.
TikTok says it hasn't and doesn't intend to share any U.S. user data with Beijing.
Listening in on that is Jan Vermeulen. He's the editor-in-chief of My Broadband. Jan, what's the big hoo-ha here? What's this about? TikTok or Beijing and Washington?
Yeah, good morning. From my reading, this is about whether the CIA and NSA have access to information or whether the Chinese Communist Party have access to information. So it's naturally asymmetric. So that's one thing. So it's okay for American three-letter agencies to spy on people, but it's not okay for anyone else. And, you know, for at a nation-state level, that's okay, I guess. But a further thing here is really it's commercial. So this is something that's actually exists on multiple levels, this issue. So back when the Trump administration put Huawei on the entities list and made it impossible for them to deal with Google and Qualcomm, making things really difficult for Huawei to compete against Android, against the likes of Samsung and so on. That was also, put as like a national security issue. But underpinning all of this really is a trade war with China. And so one thing to keep in mind is that China has banned Facebook and Twitter and Google from operating in its borders. And so, if what's good for the goose is good for the gander, then why shouldn't America reciprocate? The danger here is that America stands, in a position where it's becoming what it hates. It points the finger at Beijing all the time about human rights abuses and freedom of expression violations and so on, but it now is in danger of doing exactly the same thing.
What there's this concept of soft power and hard power. It would appear that Beijing does not even need to lift a finger, because we've been showing visuals to our viewers of people carrying billboards. Some 170 million Americans who are on TikTok, they're doing the bidding for Beijing unawares.
No, see, that's the thing. I'm not convinced that TikTok is some grand Chinese propaganda plan. TikTok is just a social media platform, and so if you are concerned about propaganda in media, then America needs to do something about the fact that China is funding a ton of Hollywood movies through Tencent and other production companies. Tencent owns a chunk of the video gaming landscape, including incredibly popular games that are played by American audiences and South African ones for that matter. And so I can't help but wonder whether this isn't about something else. And certainly TikTok is the first major social media application to emerge that is not American controlled.
Pray tell what that something else could be.
Yeah, so it is this thing that I just said, that TikTok is the first major social media platform that's emerged that is not American controlled. If you think about it, Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, all of these platforms are essentially American controlled. They're domiciled in the United States. They fall under United States law, and so that in itself is a potential danger to them. So that they cannot just exert their usual domestic law enforcement controls on this company and get everything that they want. That has to be something that's being considered here. So while the fact that ByteDance is a Chinese company is certainly convenient, the fact is the lawmakers are simply ignoring the fact that TikTok is not. It's a subsidiary of ByteDance. The same TikTok app that's available in the rest of the world is not available in China because of China's great firewall policies. And that's just like water off a duck's back to American lawmakers. And so one can't help but wonder whether it's not all these other factors, which is that suddenly America has lost control of a major social media network, in terms of it not being run and not being founded by Americans, and the fact that they might, that this is part of a larger trade war. And honestly, if this is about domestic ownership, then they should also just come out and say so. Here in South Africa, we've got domestic ownership laws. We call it BEE. And in America, if they're like, no, but we're unhappy with this major company being completely foreign owned and there needs to be domestic ownership and we should reform our laws to enable that, then that's what they should do. But then they must also, in the same breath, admit that they're not so much in favor of complete free market capitalism as they profess.
And the wheels on the bus go something like what? Thank you very much, Jan Vermeulen, for your time this morning.